Alright, so this is by Trust Me Bro. I've seen a couple of their videos before. I don't remember which ones, but I definitely seen like clips of it on YouTube or on the TikTok and YouTube Shorts. But yeah, we're gonna watch this while I eat my lunch. I got myself a burrito.
Serial killers that are still on the loose.
Okay.
According to the FBI, there could be up to 50 active serial killers in the United States right now. That's literally.
You know, I saw a documentary about serial killers, or not a documentary. I think a YouTube video off stream. That serial killers don't really exist today because of technology. We have like 911 infrastructure, surveillance cameras, traffic cams. Police have better contact with each other. So someone from like Nebraska can contact a police station in Las Vegas or in New York regarding someone. They just need information. So today it's easier to catch like someone that serially offends. There's also the FBI opened its program called YCAP, I think it's called, where you can like search up a database of violent offenders, people that commit like violent crimes. So today it's easier to find like a serial killer. But back in like the video said, the golden era of serial killers. So like the 80s, the 70s, yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer, the clown killer, the Night Stalker. I forgot like their names, but all those people, they like became infamous in the 70s and 80s because the technology wasn't there. The technology was good enough that they could get away with killing multiple people, but the technology wasn't good enough for the police or federal bureaus to investigate because they didn't have like the tools. They had the tools, but not it wasn't good enough to like catch the killers in time. Because, for instance, one example that was said in the video was 911 infrastructure wasn't as well established as it is today. If you wanted to call your local hospital or police station, you had to know the local number by heart or look it up in like a phone book. But now we have like dispatchers and 911 centers and call centers for that. All right. But enough yapping. Let's see this video.
One serial killer for every state in the United States. For this year's Halloween special, I knew I wanted to talk about serial killers, but I also knew I wanted to make it extra creepy, which is why I wanted to discuss not serial killers who we all know and have been put to jail or put to death. I wanted to discuss serial killers that are currently active or still on the loose to this day. Being on the loose and
if I had to guess, this is my like own thoughts on like serial killers that exist today. They have to be like people that work in like law enforcement or tech. Because you have to know like the infrastructure, like where surveillance is, where how do the police will respond to like a crime, how well can you like hide a crime, and to have that knowledge, you would have to be in the industry. So like you're a police officer, or you work in forensics, you're an investigator, you're a detective, you're in like that area. So you would have to know that knowledge. You would have to be working like that. I believe there was this was like an EWU video. Wasn't there like an Air Force pilot that did serial rapes and murders. He only managed to do like I think 3, which is still an unfortunate number, but this is like 2012, I think. But he still got away with it because of his background and his knowledge of like where these women lived at, because they were also a part of the military, and his background knowledge and security, the access to the databases he had. At least that's why I remember. It's been a while since I've seen that video.
being active are two different things, which is why this video is a bit of a double feature. I'm going to start by going through every serial killer who is still walking among us, and then I'm going to build up to not only serial killers who are on the loose, but are also on the loose and active to this very day. So without further ado, let's talk about killers that could technically kill you. The I-70 killer. The year is 1992. You are the manager working at a local shoe store, and you have just began your shift. Today was like any other day. You were alone in the store, and the store was quiet. That was until one peculiar looking man walked in. He enters the store looking directly at you and doesn't say much, although he asks you if you could find something for him in the back. You oblige and walk in the back only to realize you've been followed. And before you can understand what's going on, you hear the click of a gun and your life flashes. Unfortunately, that is
Is this guy like targeting stores that are like with a single employee? Because if he's shooting someone, unless he has like, even with a silencer, your coworkers are going to hear that shit. It would make more sense if he like whacked them in the back of the head with something. But shooting them, that's going to make a lot of noise. So these like people have to be working like alone.
the real story of one of the victims of the I-70 killer. And this victim was one of many. The I-70 killer is named after the I-70 highway because every single one of the murders attributed to him has taken place only a few miles off of the highway. For those unfamiliar,
a lot of these are women. Does he? Because usually, at least from like documentaries I've seen, serial killers target a specific person because it maybe they had like a traumatic experience where like they hate their mother, so they target women that look like their mother. But I don't know. I'm just making guesses.
the I-70 highway is one of the longest interstates or highways in the entire United States and runs from Utah to Maryland. That alone is an interesting fact we'll get into later, but more on the killer himself. It's believed that the I-70 killer was most active from 92 until 94, although murders as recently as 2001 have also been attributed to him. Very little is known about the I-70 killer, and every murder that is associated with him is because of the extremely consistent methodology this man used. Almost every victim of the I-70 killer follows the same criteria. The victim was a woman working alone in a retail location.
Yeah, but what about this guy? This guy's an outlier.
Only a few miles off the I-70 highway, and was nearly clinically executed with a 22mm bullet to the back of the head. Now,
Okay, that makes much more sense. If the gun was a lower caliber, because lower caliber bullets make less noise. They're still loud, but it explains why like maybe like people outside may have not heard it. Like outside the store.
Interestingly, all of the murders attributed to the I-70 killer showed little to no signs of assault or robbery after the murder took place, meaning that this killer likely killed simply for the satisfaction of killing, which is just more evidence in case you weren't convinced that this person was twisted already. Now, it's important to note that there are a few murders from the I-70 killer that are a bit unorthodox. Specifically, a few murders that involved male victims, as well as a situation where two people were murdered at the same time, which was the first and only time that happened, and it's theorized by authorities that the I-70 killer believed one of the employees was alone, when in reality the employee and store owner were both present at the location, and the I-70 killer decided to kill both of these people. As of today, there's believed to be anywhere from 6 to over 9 killings attributed to the I-70 killer. And interestingly, with these murders taking place relatively recently, and
this happened in like what, 2001? At the latest. So assuming that he has to be like, if the killer is like 30, he would be like 50 now. No. Yeah, 50 to 60 something like now. That's like on the low end. If he's like, if he committed them in his 40s, he would be 60. If he committed them in his 50s, he would be like 70. He would be like an old man. But if he committed them when he was young, like say he was 16 when he committed these, he would be like 30. No. Yeah, he would be like 30 something.
in the sheer volume of murders that took place, there is quite a bit of evidence and information taking place. But interestingly, even with technology that existed at the time, which was only the early 90s, and the technology that exists today, which is way more advanced, there is still absolutely no clue as to who the I-70 killer could be. And all we have are a few artist depictions based off of a few eyewitness accounts. My mind is still a bit blown that with over 6 active crime scenes that have all been extremely consistent in a relatively modern time period, we still have no real information and
Oh yeah, I was right. 50 to 70. And this is 2021. Based on like projections. I'm like wondering, how did he get away with it? Like what, there has to be something here that we're missing, that the reason why he got away. Either he has like I said earlier, he's like an expert or has a background in like law enforcement, forensics or something, and he wanted to try out killing, or he got extremely lucky, and like the people handling this investigation are incompetent. There's probably like more reasons to explain this, but that's like two that pop into my head.
It doesn't look like we're ever going to get any anytime soon. And for people who claim to have seen the I-70 killer, they said that they saw a skinny white man, roughly 5'7" to 5'9", in their 20s to 30s at the time.
Oh, there's even
Authorities
footage
across
of
the
it.
United States are still actively searching for the true identity of the I-70 killer to finally bring him to justice. And today, investigators believe that the I-70 killer is likely between the ages of 52 and 70, meaning that it's extremely likely that he's still alive and roaming the streets today. Although it's believed that he's either retired from killing or simply changed his methods so his new murders cannot be attributed to his now infamous persona. The I-70 killer wasn't the only killer of this kind. There's also an I-70 strangler and an I-65 killer. But even those aren't all of them. And in a press release, the FBI has even stated explicitly that a disproportionate amount of murderers and serial killers have been
What's wrong with
truck drivers,
I-70?
because their lifestyle is so conducive for serial killing. They're consistently traveling city to city. They're hanging out.
One thing, now that you brought up the trucker thing, it's easier to get away with murdering people that are on the bottom rung of society. So like homeless people, usually prostitutes, people that usually don't care about them and they don't really remember them. So it's easier for like killers to murder them because not a lot of people, they're not well connected. They don't have like a social net of people that worry about them. If they did, they wouldn't be homeless or like prostitutes. They would be like in a shelter. They would be getting help. But because they're in the way they are, it makes them easy prey for like actual malicious evil people. That's just a random thing I just remembered from the video I saw earlier.
Out in locations that are relatively temporary, you know, rest stops, gas stations, and they always have a reason to be going somewhere. And truck drivers and trucks, for the most part, kind of fly under the radar. In regards to the I-70 killer specifically, the authorities don't know what his occupation was, but they do believe that he was...
Truck drivers do move a lot. Oh wait, no, this is happening in like 2000. I was gonna say, what about like an Uber driver? Because there's some Uber drivers that travel to different states doing Uber, and they just live in their car. But that's more of a recent thing. That's not really like a 2000 thing.
Either a truck driver, a drifter, or somebody who traveled on I-70 frequently for work. So I guess all I can say is, if you're traveling on I-70 and see a man who looks something like this, keep your distance. The Eastbound Strangler. The year is 2006. You and your dog are staying in a cheap motel outside of Atlantic City because you've fallen on pretty hard times. And you decide to go out for your daily walk. You walk your dog on the usual route around the motel when you notice that your dog is particularly inquisitive about something behind the motel. He keeps trying to draw you down to this drainage ditch.
That reminded me of the body cam footage where they found a body in Florida. This was like really recent. And it was like connected to like some sex thing. I don't remember the full video context.
And while you're unwilling to go down there, you figure something suspicious is going on. You get back to your room and inform police, and after they arrive, they knock on your door and tell you that what you called them about was extremely concerning. And what was found in that drainage ditch was extremely disturbing. Inside that drainage ditch laid 4 dead women. All of the women that were found in this ditch were identified.
I'm assuming this is based on like a story of a guy that found these bodies. Did you not like see 4 dead bodies? Maybe they're like decayed to a point where it's unrecognizable as human remains. But I would like freak the fuck out if I saw 1 body, let alone 4.
As sex workers in the area. And all of these women were laid extremely...
I was connecting it earlier with the sex worker thing. They're easy targets for evil people. Because they don't have a support system. Or a network of people that care about them and check up on them.
Methodically. These women were all face down in the drainage ditch, roughly 6 feet apart from each other. All of their heads were pointed eastbound, and all of them were fully clothed except for having their socks and shoes removed. And all of them were strangled to death. Yep. The way that these women were killed and the way that their bodies were found is of course where the relatively twisted name of Eastbound Strangler came from. Now, basically everything I've just told you is almost everything that's currently known about the Eastbound Strangler. And unfortunately, that kind of just comes with the territory when you're talking about serial killers that are still on the loose. They're on the loose for a reason, and that's because not much is known, or at least not enough to find them, let alone convict them. And unfortunately, this leaves a lot of room to speculation. And I would argue that if this serial killer was at least strong enough to strangle and move the bodies of 4 women into a ditch, then it's likely that they weren't extremely old when these killings took place. And
What I'm also wondering is he positioned the bodies in a certain way, so I'm wondering why. Maybe it's like to perform, because I'm thinking like cultish or something. That's just like my guess.
because these killings took place only 19 years ago,
Or maybe he
I
has
would
like a
say
weird.
it's very likely that whoever killed
Maybe he has like a weird form of OCD where he had to kill someone and position their body in a certain way.
these 6 women is still alive today and possibly still active, because all of these 4 murders were only linked together because all of the bodies were found in the same place. But if this killer decided to just go in any other place in the country and kill somebody in any other way, well, nobody's going to really suspect the Eastbound Strangler, the Jeff Davis 8. Fortunately, the Jeff Davis 8 situation does have quite a bit of information surrounding it. However, this information, while not only upsetting, only leads to more questions than answers. The Jeff Davis 8, or the Jennings 8, refers to a series of murders that took place between 2005 and 2009 in the small town of Jennings, Louisiana.
My first thought on why these serial killers are getting away. These are all taking places in rural areas or places that don't have that much infrastructure. Because imagine this happened in like a big city. It would be easier to catch them because there's already the built infrastructure to help catch them. But this is taking place in rural Louisiana. I imagine like the police force and like the detectives don't have as much resources as like somewhere in like New Orleans or something.
The Jeff Davis 8 victims were women, but more interestingly than that, they were also connected to each other. Not only did they all live in similar circumstances of being young women, struggling with poverty, drug use, and prostitution, but they also literally knew each other.
Oh, hello?